Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Microsoft Dev Radio. I'm your host, Jerry. This is Darren.
Hey, how's it going?
Darren, what was your last Windows phone?
My last Windows phone was a Lumia 520.
My last one was a Lumia 950. I just got rid of it a month ago. Where'd you go when you lost yours? When you left yours?
I moved to an iPhone.
I did not move to an iPhone. I moved to a Google Pixel 3.
Okay.
That's an Android device. Now, you may not know this, but you can take an Android device, totally replace the experience with a launcher, and we have, at Microsoft, a Microsoft launcher.
Wow.
Yeah, you probably haven't experienced because we don't have a Microsoft launcher for iPhone yet.
We do not.
I say yet, but that's...
Who knows if it's coming?
We're going to have to buy Apple in order to make that work, I think.
And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Anyway, we've got an entire team. They're building everything together. We've got a program manager, Mark, on this show. That's this episode of Dev Radio. Hey, and welcome. This is Dev Radio. We've got Mark on the phone. Mark, thanks for joining the call today.
Hi, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Now, I've been using the Android launcher forever, and by what I mean by that is the last year. I've been using it for a year. I went whole hog into Android just a month ago and got rid of my Windows phone. It was painful. But I have to say, the experience that I loved about a Windows phone, of the integrated everything, I get a lot of that through the Android launcher. I want to talk about that, but first I want to talk about you. Who are you, Mark?
I'm Mark. I'm a group program manager on the MMX team. It's a bit of a mouthful. It's Microsoft Mobility and Cross-Device Experiences. We build mobile apps by Microsoft that cover kind of the spectrum of what you would want to do on your Android and iPhone. Some of the examples of the apps on this team are SwiftKey, the Edge mobile browser, and plenty of other things that completely convert your Android experience into something that is made by Microsoft. The launcher is kind of the linchpin of all that, and so I'm really excited to talk about this with you today. I personally have been at Microsoft for about 10 years and worked a lot on Windows, and so for me to come over to the mobile space a few years ago and start working on effectively what's our shell UI for the Android was super exciting. So it's been a really good ride.
And the shell started in the garage, right?
That's correct. Yes, it's well, I don't know. I'm tooting my team's own horn right now, but I think the garage themselves call this the most successful garage project that they've seen, and the graduation of what was the Aero launcher a couple years ago when it went out to kind of its first public availability, to Microsoft launcher last year, or I guess in 2017, was the kind of a highlight of taking this incubation project that was just a few people doing daily releases and getting that super tight feedback loop with users and making it an official Microsoft project that is getting a lot more resourcing and attention. So really proud of that.
So what does the app launcher bring to the table as an Android user? You know, obviously I'm iPhone, so I'm not really clear on what we're actually talking about here. So why don't you give me a sort of rundown of all of the key features?
Yeah, it's really interesting how the Android platform gives us that flexibility that's completely missing in the Apple ecosystem to completely replace your home screen. So you go and you install that app, and as soon as you're done and you launch it, it starts replacing your home screen. So all the apps you had pinned disappear, which can be a little bit unsettling, actually. You have to bring them back. The apps list that you see is also completely customizable with our own UI. And then one of the highlights is if you swipe to the right, then the -1 feed is what we call that, becomes completely customizable by the launcher itself. And so on a Pixel phone, you would see the Google feed that has kind of all their news, etc. In Microsoft, we can just decide what you put there, and we've created this collection of cards that connect you to the Microsoft ecosystem. So you sign in with your Microsoft account, and all those cards, you see your notes, you see your to-dos, you see personalized news from Microsoft News, you can see obviously your calendar from Outlook, your family, if you have a family account set up with Microsoft, is visible, and you can even track your children, if you're worried about where they're at.
Oh, wait, Mark, let's do this one at a time because there's so much awesomeness. All right, let's start with what you said last. So family, I have all my kids have Androids as well, right? They all run the launcher, and because they run the launcher and they're set up as children in my family account from my Microsoft account, I swipe to the left, right. I swipe to the right, which comes over from the left.
Yep.
Clear as mud.
And all of a sudden, there's a map of where all my kids are. It's unbelievable. And I don't have to install anything. They don't have to install anything. It's all just sitting there. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then I start scrolling down, and now comes the integration with Microsoft To Do. I see all my To Do items if I want to. I can take it away if I don't. I can see my next calendar events. I can see the last documents I worked on inside Office, whatever tool I was in Office. I can't even remember the others, but there's more. And then if I swipe a little to the right, because you have like that negative experience, then another positive experience where when you swipe back the other way, you get even more information. I can see. You forgot to mention the Windows timeline, man.
Yes. So this is this -1 page that I talked about. There's really 3 tabs in it. So what we just talked about, the list of cards, is what we call the glance feed. And that's completely customizable. You can pin the cards you want. And if you never use OneNote and you don't want to see your notes, you can unpin it. And so this is kind of your Microsoft experience. The second tab is Microsoft News, and that's kind of a full list of your personalized news. And the third is Timeline. And that's something that we shipped last year about at the same time as kind of the Timeline shipped on Windows. And what it shows you is all of your activities from all of your different PCs and phones in that feed. And if you tap any one activity, obviously we go and launch either the appropriate app on your phone. If you have Word installed, we just launch your Word document in there, or we just open it in a web page. So if you don't have PowerPoint installed, for instance, we can still open it in PowerPoint Web in the Edge mobile browser if you have that installed.
Of course you have that installed. I don't even understand the question.
So you mentioned cards. Is that an Android-specific UI, or is that an extension or an implementation of adaptive cards from the broader sort of Microsoft ecosystem?
Oh, yeah.
Great question. This is actually where, if you're a developer, you might like to hear what I have to say, because these cards are actually widgets. And so you know how Android supports a widget platform where any app can provide widgets you can pin on your home screen, you can pin anywhere. Guess what? You can actually pin those in the glance feed. And all they are is widgets that are formatted in a way that just fits with this nice aesthetic. And so if you're a developer, you have an app, and you would like our users to pin you in their feed, and it looks exactly the same as the launcher, you can go ahead and kind of build those widgets and give them this nice look and feel that we have.
Because you allow me to create additional, I'll tell you the best part is the way that you present all of the apps. Because the way that Google by default presents all the apps is like crazy chaos. Like it's just ridiculous how to find things. But it doesn't look like Windows Phone, but it kind of looks like the developer used to use Windows Phone. That's what it kind of feels like. You know what I mean? I like that.
Harkening back.
The apps list?
Yeah, I like that a lot. Here, let me ask you about Cortana. So one of the things that appears to me is that when I use the launcher, it automatically automatically like passes my sign-on to other apps for me. I don't know if it's the launcher doing that or what, but because I installed the launcher first, I assume it's the launcher that makes it so that Word works correctly. And even when I log into Edge, it just says, "Do you want to keep using Jerry?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Is that the launcher doing that for me?
That's right. Yeah, this is single sign-on across Microsoft apps, and that's actually something that is available in most of our apps. So, and if you had installed Word first, you would have the same experience. But what's cool is that the launcher, being the root of that experience, is often kind of the first thing that people would install on a new phone, and then everything that you go and install after that will inherit all those credentials. And you're right, you kind of get that nice single sign-on. And then even in Edge afterwards, I keep plugging Edge. I'm sorry.
You say it's Edge, but it's actually Chrome, isn't it?
It is Chromium. Yes, it's similar to the version.
Edgeium.
Well, but it was Chromium before Edge became Chromium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it just wraps Chrome to give you all your bookmarks and all the stuff that you like.
So you mentioned that single sign-on environment. So if I say I'm building my app using Xamarin and I publish out to Android, can I also inherit that single sign-on environment, or is that something that's exclusive to Microsoft branded apps?
That is something that's exclusive to Microsoft branded apps.
So it has to be by the publisher. That's probably the scope.
I think so. I would have to double check on that one though.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, slid that one in there.
Maybe someday. That's right. Oh, let me back up to Cortana. Remember Cortana?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Halo.
Yeah, Halo.
And so
Halo Jerry.
Halo. The Cortana shows up right there inside the launcher. But I also noticed there's a Cortana application in the Play Store as well. Tell me about Cortana integration, what the difference between those two things are.
Well, what we found when we started talking with all those different teams at Microsoft is that Cortana actually has a really nice home in the launcher because it's right there. When you can swipe, you can use shortcuts to invoke it. And we really don't want people to have to go to a separate app to use their assistant. It just feels like an extra step in the same way that we don't want people to go to Outlook to see their next calendar appointment. And so having Cortana right there in the launcher, you can set it as your default device assistant as well, so that if you long press, it gets invoked. Really fits well with all those other services that Cortana helps you connect to. And we have the same kind of, sorry.
No. I was going to ask a question. Is Cortana just scoped to the applications within your app launcher environment, or is it still bridge out to other assistants and other capabilities?
No, we're using the exact same SDK as the Cortana app itself, and so we have the same capabilities. You can invoke Alexa through Cortana on your launcher. You can do turn-by-turn conversations, kind of back and forth answers with Cortana. That's something we're adding very soon. So all those capabilities from the app, you have it in there, and you can always use the app as well if you want. But this is all.
You wouldn't need to use the app, right? Because that's the whole idea.
Yeah, I mean,
does the app exist for people who don't install the launcher? Is that what's going on?
Yes, we find that a lot of people actually don't necessarily know what our launcher is and what it does, and get scared when their home screen gets replaced. And so for them, it's kind of the safer option is to keep using the apps like they're used to and not kind of make that big jump.
Got it. Yeah, that makes plenty of sense. So let's see. You have Cortana integration, all of Office integration, including To Do. We have family integration. We have, let's see, there's a long list of all these things that it says, now you can install this. We have Edge integration. What else am I missing?
Did I talk about universal search?
Oh, no.
So whenever you use the search box that comes with the launcher, we actually have this really cool thing that we call universal search that goes across your settings, your apps, the web, and even if you have your work account connected, all of the Microsoft search that we've been talking about a lot at Build and other conferences, where you can search for colleagues, workplace documents, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that gets collated into this one search box, which is really cool.
Are you getting jealous yet?
I am actually. As you mentioned, the iPhone experience just is non-customizable and hasn't changed since it originally launched, basically. That to me was one of the biggest frictions to moving over to the device. The thing that made it sensible for me was the rest of my family was using it. That's where you went. So what sort of top secret things you can't talk about are on the roadmap? We won't share with anybody.
Yeah, what can we look forward to?
Well, you talked about Windows Phone. So Windows Phone has live tiles, obviously, and we're not working on that.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
No. We do have plans to build into more Microsoft services as we go.
Well, Mark, let me ask you something. It seems like if you were a developer today and you wanted to write your own launcher that was just like the Microsoft launcher, you almost could. I mean, when you look at with the Graph API, you guys probably implement Project Rome and all these other things that are like, who is using all these crazy services? The launcher seems to be using every service.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we're using is I think everything we're using is public. So there's a lot of SDKs that we're using that are internal to power our search experience, to power Cortana. And so those are definitely things that you wouldn't necessarily have access to as an external developer. But yes, building timeline is something that we're doing using the public Rome APIs, building things like the tasks and OneNote experience, something we're using going through the task fabric, which I think is a public SDK as well. And so there's certainly a lot of things you can do as a developer.
Now, tell me just a little bit about, so a big concern about replacing the launcher from the one that's out of the box. The one thing Google does right, I could barely say it out loud. It is high performance. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't start up a brand new phone and I'm like, the performance of the launcher is terrible.
Right.
But then I go to somebody, I'm like, you should really think about the Microsoft launcher. It's reasonable for them to say, now wait a minute, what's the performance of the Microsoft launcher? What do you say to people who are concerned about that?
We're lucky enough that we have one of the teams that's in Microsoft that's the most connected to our customers. The team spends hours every day looking at feedback from the Google Store, the in-app feedback as well, and monitoring kind of everything that we're getting. And even though we do have our own standardized, performance and reliability tests, it's really hard to test across the entire breadth of Android devices that are out there. And so we really rely on that telemetry and user feedback to make sure that everything is up to our standards. And we pay a ton of attention to fundamentals, like especially with the launcher. So fun story, but every time a launcher crashes, Android will show you that dialog that says, hey, like, do you want to use the Pixel launcher, or do you want to use the Android launcher? It just shows you the list of launchers on your device and asks you which one you want to use. And so we have this really high incentive to not be crashing and to keep things going really smoothly. Yeah. We spend about, I think, 50% of the team's time on that.
Just keeping it fast and smooth.
Keeping it fast.
Yeah.
And customizing it. We hear a lot of feedback from people who want more options, and one thing you mentioned is you're using the Pixel launcher and you're not super happy necessarily with like you were using the Pixel launcher at first with the different options. It doesn't make sense. They really don't have that many options to personalize the experience.
No,
we really try to
put it on. That's right. It's like using a Mac. It's like no settings at all.
Right.
The
app grid on the home screen goes all the way up to 12 app by 12 apps. So it's kind of this insanely dense, kind of small icon layout. And most launchers don't give you that option, but lots of people want that amount of information on their home screen.
Weird person wants 12. They want 144 apps visible at one time. And they've got it ultra small.
Yeah.
They're using toothpick.
Well, I must admit, I am getting jealous of that experience, not having something similar on the iPhone.
Yeah, it certainly makes me feel like if a cool feature was introduced by Microsoft onto the Android device, the launcher would somehow prompt me and like force me to make sure to notice it. You know what I mean? And not let it just slip under between my fingers. Because that's the hardest part. Because who would have guessed we would live in a day where you could go to an iPhone or an Android, open up the App Store, and in the top 20, Microsoft dominates. Like, who would guess that? It's unbelievable to me.
Yep.
And Android especially. And it's partly because, well, Mark, frankly, your team doesn't suck.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I tell them.
Let's hope there wasn't a glitch when you said that.
No, let me repeat. Does not suck. Yes, that's pretty awesome. It's really awesome. So a developer decides or anybody actually, right? Decides they want to use the launcher. What are the prerequisites? How do you get them started?
Really simple. Just go to the Play Store, download it, launch the app, and then it will kind of guide you through it. You mentioned kind of helping people discover things. We try to do that a lot. And again, lots of people don't know what a launcher is, even if they've used Android for a long time. And so we have
it's not the same as rooting. I mean, I think that's important.
It's not. It's really not, right? Like, it's all supported. We have to go through the same kind of reviews and make sure that we don't request too many capabilities on your device and all that. Like, there's a lot of good safeguards there. And once you launch us, there's a few screens to kind of guide you through, hey, like, this is your new home screen. This is where you go find the apps that you want to pin. This is where you find that -1 page with the glance feed. And so we try to coach people through finding all that and personalizing it.
So what phone do you carry?
I have both an iPhone and Android. My team both works on both platforms.
Oh, so you have to do both. I got it.
I was going to say, I remember having SwiftKey on my iPhone at one point in time, but I think, did that get rolled into another product now? I forget exactly what happened.
SwiftKey is still around. It's part of the MMX team as well. And there's a lot that they're doing as well to kind of work better with the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. They just created a search integration with Bing that is also going to support Microsoft Search, etc. So like all of these different apps kind of come back and bring all those things together.
Cool.
You know what? If you can't have a Windows phone, it's pretty close. That's the wrong way to say it. It's not close. It takes some of the sting away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you know that you can add maybe like one secret feature that you may or may not have discovered, but we allow you to pin contacts to your home screen just like Windows Phone with the launcher, which is something that other launchers don't do either. So there you go. That's one more ways you can get closer to your Windows Phone experience.
Well, I did know that. And it is awesome because unlike the way that Google tries to do it, you can tap on somebody and it immediately calls them, which I love. Like, it's super fast. It's makes pocket dialing really easy. And you still have the little tray at the bottom. I actually disable a tray, but anyway, most people don't, I know, and it's pretty sweet. And how do you keep it oriented? Do you do a vertical or do you do a horizontal for your apps?
Right now the vertical is the only support orientation, but we're adding landscape mode in the future. So.
Yep, it's gonna be
foreshadowing.
Sweet. It's gonna be sweet. I'm telling you, man, it's cool. If you have an Android, not having the Microsoft, here's the real thing. If you're an Office 365 user, that's really where it dials in. Or if you're just your Microsoft account and you use your Outlook.com and all of these things, and you just you're not going Gmail. Don't get me wrong, you can still use Gmail. But if you're one of those two, you're crazy not to use the launcher. It's so integrated for everything that you're already doing. It seems like a natural fit. And I'll tell you what, I am not tolerant of apps that damage the performance of my phone, I'll just say. And as a result, I have very few apps installed. But I have the launcher installed, and I dig it. I totally dig it. Awesome. It's really cool. And the family integration is pretty neat. The Cortana integration is pretty neat. I love all of those things. And you also have app suggestions? Is it machine learning in there that's trying to guess what I'm doing?
No, I think those are just free. Those are Microsoft apps that we're just recommending based on not necessarily machine learning, but just like simple segments of like what apps you're already using on your phone, things like that. But
okay, good, because I thought maybe my usage behavior was too complicated to guess or something. Because I'm like, nope, that's not for me. That's right. Pinning people. There's a setting in there that maybe you could walk me through what it's supposed to do. There's a setting that's there that says I can't remember the name. Super high performance versus normal or something like that. What happens when you switch it to be the super high performance? You know what I'm talking about? Does it just take away things like animations?
Yes, I think that's all it does. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I don't have it checked because it's still really fast, and even without me clicking that, for sure. Cool, Mark. Good job, by the way. This is really a heck of a situation for not just developers, but just users who are accustomed to the Microsoft ecosystem. It's amazing on my Twitter feed how many people say they still carry their Windows phone. Like they're going to take it to their deathbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at least it gives them a way to migrate over in a way that feels really good. But it also gives anybody else who's decided to go all in on the Microsoft ecosystem to really get like some rewards back in a really good way, so that they can integrate all the stuff that they've already kind of bought into or just use right there in their phone in an easy way. It's pretty cool. iPhone, it's still pretty cool.
Yep.
It's not as integrated as the Microsoft launcher. Anything else, Mark? Any extra thing you want to throw in about the Microsoft launcher?
We do have. You mentioned rewards, and that's one thing that we see a lot is there's a set of people who are using Microsoft Rewards. I don't know if you use Microsoft Rewards, but it gets you points for searching on Bing, and they are some of the biggest, like most vocal users of kind of Edge Mobile and the launcher, because as you use launcher, you can get Microsoft Rewards point as well. And so we do get a pretty big crowd of people who are really into that. So.
Yeah, that's right. I noticed they were in there. I might have thrown that in just for fun. Yeah, that's exactly right. And by the way, to be fair, you're not providing a news feed in the Glance. You are actually integrating with the news app, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, it's the same data source as the news app. I don't think it's directly integrated in that you don't have to have the news app on your phone to actually see the news feed. But yeah, it's the same news, and the layouts are some things that we're kind of trying to converge and keep coherent, so that if you do have both, it kind of looks the same across the different experiences.
Well, something is connected, because I notice I have a couple of extra keywords that I search for whenever I'm in the news app. You know how it lets you kind of tailor it. And those tailored things somehow show up in my newsfeed on the launcher, which is pretty sweet as well. Because when you're just sitting on a train, which I do all the time, just swipe to the right. And
that high-speed train from Evergreen down to here, yeah?
Oh, man, it's great. Anyway, Mark, if you're an Android user and you don't use it, it seems crazy to me because you guys have done such a great job on all these integrations. And you know what's funny is if I were just sitting here, I'm like, I've got a whole bunch of feature requests to give you. I actually don't have that many feature requests to give you. It's kind of crazy. Like you have your dark theme, light theme, transparent theme, all of that works out exactly the way I want it to be. The landscape stuff and the portrait stuff, all of that works the way I want it to be. I mean, live tiles, be sweet.
Yeah.
Be sweet.
Good tease, by the way. Good tease.
Yeah. And I read where notification integration for your phone was coming, which is pretty cool. You guys is the your phone also in the MMX team?
Yeah, cross-device. That's the keyword. Your phone companion is kind of another Android app that helps you connect back to your Windows PC and look at your notifications, look at your texts, your MMS, all of this good stuff. Yeah,
and SwiftKey. If you know how SwiftKey keeps telemetry on all the buttons that you push the most, it shows up on your desktop. And then when you see the telemetry on SwiftKey, it's awesome. It's awesome. You guys are doing incredible things, man. I just have to say, thanks for being on the show today. I think just kind of feeling the love that Microsoft gives to the platform is cool. Just seeing that Microsoft is like consuming all of these services that we're selling at Build, and that we can make something really cool, high performance, and really great. I mean, it's neat.
Well, it's great to see Microsoft extending beyond, the closed platforms.
Well, that's fair too. Yeah.
It's taking those services and making them available to everybody, and I think that's an important step that's been made recently.
Yeah. Well, recently, this is the Satya era.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Mark, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure.